Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Live here, and yes, as the title suggests, I've only bloomin' played SteamWorld Build, and if you haven't heard of that, that's because it was announced, like, 24 hours before this video goes live. But yeah, I've been playing it a decent chunk, and so I thought I'd tell you what I think of it. I've done this before, I will likely do it again. Having said that, there are a few stipulations that I want to make absolutely clear about this, because I did not play the Switch version. There's a noisy boy in the room.
Why are you so noisy? You've been on the windowsill, you're very warm.
Yeah, the Switch version wasn't available to try out, but they did give me the Steam version, and they said, would you like to try that? And I said, well, considering the fact that you've made it abundantly clear that the overall experience will be the same between the versions, yes. So I'm not going to be talking about performance or visuals or anything like that, because it's not really fair. It's not the Switch version of the game, so it's potentially not representative. But the gameplay's the same, so I can talk about that. Also, just for clarity, I played it on the Aya Neo at 720p. Because it was the most convenient for me. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. So, SteamWorld Build, for anyone unaware, this is a management sim game similar to something like, well, kind of like something like, you know, Roller Coaster Tycoon or Sim City, and anyone who's familiar with the games of the past, Dungeon Keeper, because yes, you'll not only be creating a city on the surface, but you'll also be mining in lower levels, and I do mean levels. I was only able to play with one level underneath, but, you know, there are more. The game definitely specifies, and they show it in trailers. You've got residents that you need to look after, and you can change those residents and kind of like upgrade them. So there's like the worker class, which is like your lowest tier. That's just like you build a house, workers appear, and they do all the grunt work, unsurprisingly. And then above that, you have engineers, and they do stuff that's more technical, you know, like glass making and stuff like that. And then above that, you have the Aristobots, and they do all well, I don't know what they do, but presumably from the name, not as much as they could. And you've got to fulfill certain needs, you know, having proximity to things like a repair shop so that they can, which is, I suppose, kind of like a hospital. And, you know, engineers will need more than that, and Aristobots will need more than that still. So, you know, it's different layers going on. And you've got loads of different things to create. They essentially call them refineries. And so you've got things like you can chop down wood from the world, and you can, you know, turn that wood into planks, and that's like a really basic one. You can like sift sand and turn it into glass, as I mentioned before. And you know, and all these little things, it's very typical in a lot of ways, in sort of, yo, you need to do all this in order to get this, and you do more things low down and you progress higher. But it's very elegantly done. I must admit that for the first sort of 40 minutes or so that I was playing, I feared it might be a little bit too simple, but thankfully it's not. You know, as you go further in, you know, like then you unlock the mine and everything, and you've got to mine for resources which then get transported up, and you've got to think about logistics and the road layout and stuff like that. It definitely gets more complicated, but it eases you in really beautifully. A big thing as well is the UI. I genuinely don't think I've ever played a management sim with this few menus. Like, everything's just very logically laid out. You've got like this bar at the bottom, and you've got the different categories, and there's subcategories within that. But the icons are very clear for the most part. Sometimes they get a bit unclear when it comes to things like, I found spare parts to be a really unintelligible icon, but maybe that's just me. But for the most part, it's absolutely clear. And what's even better is you've got like the bar at the bottom. You go into engineer, or you think like, I would need to make a moonshiner because the engineers are complaining that they don't have any alcohol. So you go into the engineer section, you go into the moonshine section, or moonshiner, because it's a refinery kind of thing. And it's like, hey, for a moonshiner to create moonshine, they're gonna need glass, for which you need sand, and you need cactus farm water and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, and it just lays it out with these dotted lines in a very clear pattern. And it's just like, it's very clear what you need to do, and it's not a load of information, which is something that quite a few management sims fall into the trap of. You know, they often go with the sort of the tell, don't show, whereas this is show, don't tell. Moreover, the interface has been designed with a controller in mind from the very get-go, and it absolutely shows. Like, I used a controller for 100% of my playtime, and I mean 100%, by which I mean like 99.9%, because at one point I had to type in the name of my town using a keyboard, which they're aware of, and it's just amusing. We've come a really long way, actually, you know. I mean, it goes back to stuff like Halo Wars, which was an RTS, which I suppose wasn't as forgiving as a management sim where you can often just pause time, which you can do in this game as well. But, you know, the idea of using a controller for what was traditionally a very PC-focused thing is not as outlandish as it used to be. And we've seen it with the 2 Point games, and here, yeah, they've knocked it out of the park. They really have. Another thing that's kind of related is the switching between the mines and the surface level. In the mines, obviously, it's quite different. It's maybe a little bit more hands-on. You're still directing, but it's a little bit more granular. You're like, dig this thing and dig that square, and, you know, you're telling prospectors to go here and engineers to build this and that, and, you know, it's you're more sort of directing rather than just plonking things down yourself. So it's definitely a different experience. But the best part of the mines is how blinking quick it is to get to them. Like, what you're about to see is real time. I've done nothing. Just that's it. It's that fast. It's just like, oh, I'm on the surface, but boom, I'm down in the mines, baby. It's arguably a small thing, but if it was kind of like a wait, you know, sort of like, or even just like a few seconds or something, it would definitely be not a problem, but an irritating little thing just there. And, you know, it wouldn't break the game or make the game unplayable by any stretch, but the fact that it is so fast is such a wonderful quality of life feature. How they're doing it, I don't know. It feels like they're running them in unison at the same time, and maybe they are. I can't speak for going to lower levels of mine as well, but if they can do it for this one, I doubt that it would be slower to go to the other ones. I mean, I don't know that, but I doubt it. And even sweeter, if you're looking at a certain part, you know, sort of the camera's at a certain angle, and you're looking at a certain part of the city, and you're like, okay, let's pop down to the mine, boom, and then you move around, you look at somewhere else in the mine, let's go over here, all the way over here, and then you go, let's go back up to the surface, let's go back up to the surface, and you go, boom, you're exactly where you were when you were looking at the city before. A minor thing, but there's no disorientation. You're, boom, exactly back where you were. The game has loads of little bits of charm in there as well. You know, little things like the spare parts shop has a leg hopping up and down and an arm pulling itself along. You know, the sort of thing where it's not important. It's absolutely not important. And like when you're placing a building, it's like it's got wobble physics. It's so not important at all. But it just helps to make the whole thing feel more polished, more rounded, more fun. Also, I found this little guy on a roller coaster, and if that's not a reference to Roller Coaster Tycoon, yeah, it's a reference to Roller Coaster Tycoon. I've been really enjoying my time with the game. I really have. I mean, it's kind of my thing, you know. I love a management sim. I love the SteamWorld universe and the games that they've produced before as well. So it was kind of obvious that I was going to enjoy this. I mean, there are some little things that are kind of, you know, as I mentioned before, like some of the most of the icons are really clear, but some of them, and I can understand why, are not as clear. And, you know, it's sometimes I feel like maybe the game is a tiny bit too simple in places, but I've only been able to get down to one layer of the mine. I've not been allowed to play any further. And even though I know I could do, because who's watching me, if I don't play it, I can't accidentally talk about it. I am keen to see how it runs on Switch, but we've seen similar games like this run very well. Obviously, the multi-level thing is gonna be, I'm sure, an interesting challenge for them, but they have every confidence. They're saying it's coming out on all platforms. They've assured me it's coming to Switch and everything. They wouldn't be reaching out to us if it wasn't. So I'm certain that it's going to run at least tolerably. But I'm still very keen to see it with my own eyes. There is one other element, and it's relatively minor, all things considered, but it's the story. The story is quite nice. They explained it in the presentation that they did. Basically, you know, it's they know the world's gonna blow up, So all these Steambots have got together and they're like, let's build a rocket to yeet ourselves off the planet because they don't need oxygen. And you know SteamWorld Heist is in space. Though, as far as I'm aware, none of the characters I've come across are in SteamWorld Heist, but you know, the world is a big and rich place. It's just nice how it sort of slots in. And I've not got very far with the story, of course, and I don't know whether it's different depending on which level you pick, because I was only able to play one level, but it's fun. It's nice. It's a nice little extra wrinkle, and I looked in the options. You can turn it off. If you've played it before, you can just go, nah, I don't fancy the story this time, just give me the raw gameplay. Same with the tutorial. That's good stuff. Also, you can turn off the voice acting. I actually think the voice acting is quite good. Example.
In order to get the mine shaft up and running, we'll need the engineers.
But there are still many unknowns to overcome before we can reach the old technology below.
You mean there's stuff you don't know? Well, that's a surprise.
I mean, it's not like it's God of War or anything, but it's perfectly serviceable. I like the clear sort of slightly Scandinavian sort of twang you can hear in the accents from the voice actors, or at least some of them. It gives it a really unique tone, and that's something that I would like to see going forward because, you know, they're Steambots, they're fictitious. Why wouldn't they have a crazy accent? But if you don't like it, you can turn off the voice acting and they just go as they have done in past games, and it's a nice option. It's not one that I'm going to enable, but it's an option. Hey, Pokemon, it's an option! And there you have it. Those are my thoughts on SteamWorld Build. I thoroughly enjoy it, and I can't wait to give it a go on Switch, because I've only played the Steam version. I can't hammer that point home enough. What do you think of the game? Do you think it looks good? Is Management Sim not really your cup of tea? Were you really hoping for SteamWorld Dig 3 like so many others? I'm personally thrilled that they've gone for something different, because every time they tackle a new genre, it's been marvelous. But whatever your thoughts, let us know what they are with a comment in the comment repository. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you strap some spare parts to that subscribe button and call it Steam Powered on Steam. I can't escape the Steam. And be sure to check out nintendolife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye bye. I played the Steam version. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you build it? Mr. Boy. Who's a Russell today? Who's a Russell? You're a Russell. Okay, you can go back down. Just no Russell, okay?